The opinions made in this video do not necessarily coincide with that of Imaginary Goddess, or anyone else for that matter. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Mercenary King here with the state of play over the Revival Collection. This has been pretty crazy, actually. Bushy Road, despite years of not doing that sort of thing, has reprinted a real buttload of cards, including things like Chaos Breaker, the old classic Minerva, Alice, and some new cards like Arcsaver Dragon, and some cards that were only Japan only, like Sanctuary Guard Imperial. And I think Arcsaver was in Bushy Road Monthly, or one of those other publications. Not very common in Japan either. I'm actually excited about this one. I'm going to see what I can do with it with Alfred, excuse me. But we'll find out. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the cards in some vague order, and we'll talk about them. I'm not going to go over the abilities so much, just sort of just talk about them. Here we have Guild Array. This is probably one of the most powerful cards in Dark Irregulars, and certainly a stride that you want 4 of in every deck. It prevents grade 1s, and gets crits at 15 cards in Soul. So, there are ways to get him absolutely huge. I believe it is estimated that he will be around $15. The double rare foil pattern, I'm not going to lie, isn't all that cool to me. But it is, flashy enough to be interesting, and they do have the design of the guy over the foil. This is a worthwhile card to get, and he's a little bit cheaper here. I do have the SP on hand for him. As you can see, all SPs are now full art, which is very valuable to some, especially when it comes down to Minerva. Hey Minerva, do you know Ash, do you know how much a Minerva SP is? Yeah. Yeah, 40-something, 50 or so, and that's actually really good. Let me just take a look here. No other SPs. And that's actually pretty good here, because it's the full art, and let me tell you, Minerva's thighs are fantastic. Honestly, the Regalia cards are really great, but we're not there yet. Now we have Lords of the Seven Seas Night Mist. This is one of the strongest break rides in the game. Break rides, when you ride something and you're at 4 damage, you can gain abilities specified to their clan. And what this guy does is he summons out 2 cards from the drop zone, and he gives them plus 5k. And then they die at the end of turn. But this guy, honestly, he's one of the strongest cards for Grand Blue, and he makes one of the 2 builds of 7 Seas really pop. Because when you superior ride a Pludgeton, and then, get like 3 cards for free, and then you do other skills that get you even more almost free anyway. And then you do even more skills to get you more cards, it's really fearsome. He doesn't really see much play in Grade 1 Rush, which is probably for the better, because you don't really have the Grade 3 slots to break ride. Next we have Eradicator, Gauntlet Buster Dragon. Now this one was a bit of a meh to me. Now all the triple rares are doing like 3 to 4 at least, but this guy, part of the problem is that all the Eradicator stuff is overcosted for what it is. Now, but the abilities are so deadly. He gets plus 3k and a crit every time you kill an opponent's rearguard, and he can counterblast 2 to kill an opponent's rearguard. So, it's not that he's bad, it's just that he's not quite as good as he should be. Now, in the era that he was in, he was pretty good. Especially when break rides, you break ride on him, you kill something that's 23k crit, 24k crit too, and then you can usually kill a couple other things, for more plus 3k's crit too. But then, it was an era where you didn't get perfect shields. Like, when you could check the top 4 cards or more of the top of your deck instead of the top 3, for a perfect shield, it really does make guys like him a bit weaker. However, he does have strides that work with him. which hopefully will make him see more play. But honestly, I don't see it. Most of the support for Eradicators that have come out have been for Descendant or are just too weak to really see top tier play. Now, of course, there's always this person's like, well, I can play him. I could do this. Get the stride off early by G guarding. Yes, you can do that. What else is there to it? Once the guy perfects you, it's like, oh, well then. Rangel, this guy's actually keeping his value. He's probably one of the strongest break strides in the game, and he can give an on-hit, Counterblast 1 draw, as well as plus 4k to whatever strides over him. And of course he gets triple drive, but nobody cares. Sorry, Rangel, nobody cares. There's other things to care about. So really, he works with every single dimensional Dime Police stride that doesn't require a specific archetype. I'm just going to say archetype. Really, for every generic, quote-unquote generic D-Police deck, he's just necessary. Really good card. Sadly, doesn't work with Dive Kaiser. Then we have Omniscience Regalia Minerva. She is the one who makes Regalia great. Back in the day, when archetypes were a bigger thing than they are now, because back in the day with you had Eradicators, and you had Liberators, and you had Regalia, you had what's the other stuff? Starvator. They were sort of duking it out for supremacy, and she was kind of the best of the lot. She probably shows off the height of the Limit Break era before it became Legion. There is no Limit Break card that's probably better than her by itself. You might say, well, what about Raging Form Dragon? By itself, that's the qualification here. Raging Form Dragon is a pretty great card. She restains for a Counterblast, Soul Blast, discard 3, and she gets plus 5k. She's also a cross ride. Now, you might be like, well, discard 3 for a stand and you get 2 drive checks again? First off, that's pretty good. She gives herself power, that's also good. But the real thing that makes her really good is the fact that she works so well with all her support. One of the secrets to Genesis and Regalia have been their amazing ability to work with their own support and create really great combos or just super strong lines of attack and defense with hand, as well as real easy to get off 12k attackers and stuff like that. Sadly, the recent Regalia support hasn't been as great as it could be. But Minerva, I believe, will keep value. Like we said earlier, an SP Minerva is $50 or so, and I hope it remains there. Minervas were once with a reprint, it does hurt the original's value a bit, but they were a great investment choice for any player. Nightmare Doll Alice, she is probably one of the most... I'm trying to figure out how to say this right. I'm going to say she hasn't aged well, but she hasn't aged poorly. She's on hit, Counterblast 1, flip herself in for another Nightmare Doll. Now, with the new Nightmare Doll support, she can basically flip her out for one that'll summon her out from the soul and give her plus 5k. So you're constantly just flipping her out every time they hit. She does work with Harry. A lot of people say that she doesn't work well with Harry, but it's one of those things where I don't agree. It's just I just don't agree. You use Harry to give her power, and then you rely on her combos. That's how it works. I don't know. There's a Nightmare Doll archetype that can be strong or bad randomly. It's really kind of dependent on what you call into it. Call into the soul. She's still $9 or something, which is pretty good. Her art is fantastic. She really is one of the best cards in Vanguard, just because she's aged so well. I don't think I said she aged well, but earlier. I'm contradicting myself. What I mean is, she's still playable in an era where you stride. She works on rear guard. It's great. The only weakness is her 10k. Next, we have a new card that was only released in Japan, Arc Saber Dragon. Auto Vanguard, Counterblast 3, Soul Blast 3. Beginning of your main phase, pay the cost. If you do, choose one card from your deck, Soul and Drop Zone, and Damage Zone, up to a total of 3 cards, and call them to separate rearguards and shuffle your deck. So, this card cannot be called a rearguard, and it cannot be superior called as well to rearguard. So in other words, it's Vanguard or it's discarded first stride. So I want to point out how this works. So the ideal situation is Counterblast 3, Soul Blast 3. Choose a card from your deck, Drop Zone, and Damage Zone. The Damage Zone card will heal you. The Drop Zone card is repairs a minus, and the deck is a plus. That's how it goes. Really, I'm surprised this card isn't more expensive, but what I plan on doing is build around it later, because it does seem to be the type of card that really works with me, speaks to me. I like it a lot. I do recommend buying this card if you're going to build a generic Royal Paladin deck, which still exists, by the way. A lot of Brave cards work in generic decks, too. Lambros, probably the bane of every player who's ever had to face Aquaforce, and, the feeling of despair that you get when the opponent says something like, and now for the second Lambros. He flips over a copy of himself, so you're required to get to it, guaranteed. And restands 2 rearguards in the 4th battle or more, and gives him plus 10k if you're at G-Break 2 already, before this ability goes off. Or rather, G-Break 3, excuse me. It is actually a G-Break 3 ability, because it counts himself in the 2 in here. There's not much else to say about this card, other than it is keeping its value at about 20, and it's a really good card to have, 4 guaranteed. It's like Aura Geyser and Guild Array, you gotta have them. Holy Dragon, Sanctuary Guard, Imperial, Counterblast one if you have a heart with Sanctuary Guard. This is another new one, by the way, only released in Japan. If you have a heart with Sanctuary Guard, choose 1 grade 1 or less rearguard. This unit gets plus 3k for each of your grade 1 or less rearguards, and it also gets, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, choose a Vanguard, and it gets plus 10k at critical. So, let's say that you're at 3 damage, and your Vanguard, they stride into this guy. That means that they can give one of their grade 1 or less rearguards in the front row, and there's some things that can get some crazy power. It can get big, and they have to guard it. Otherwise, they have to have a perfect shield to use on Imperial. And then, of course, there's still the other rearguard. Now, I'm not going to say this card's perfect, but this card is sorely needed in the Sanctuary Guard deck, and I think it will do a lot of work. I don't think it'll make it give as big a splash as the grade 3. But I think it'll do great. Chaos Breaker Dragon. This is also on the same league as Minerva. Like, I believe that Chaos Breaker has some flaws to it that are intrinsic, and so does Minerva, but I think Minerva is the one that sort of stands up stronger over a period of time. You might be like, well, Ben, they gave him some specific support. They haven't given Minerva any support, but for some strange reason, when she shows up, she does work. But Chaos Breaker can be countered, messed with much more easily than she can. Just by the fact that, they had to give him his own stride that is specific to him for him to work. But they could just give out a generic Regalia stride and Minerva's back again. Sadly, I don't see her too much in my meta, but I've been hearing about her from friends and whatnot. Contacts across the sea. Basically, Soul Blast 1, Starvader, which is a weakness. It's very archetype determined. You can retire a card that is just unlocked and draw a card off of it. Also, you can Counterblast 1, discard a Starvader from hand, and you can lock an opponent's rearguard. So, these aren't bad abilities, and they were very strong at the time, but the problem is that they aged. When Legion came in, they immediately gave, Planetal Dragon, or whatever his name is, he can lock a triangle for Counterblast, too. Sure, he doesn't plus off it like Chaos Breaker does, but at the same time, that's a Counterblast 2 triangle lock. There's also cards that kind of, that also got support, like Infinite Zero, which now Omega Lock cards, and you could have, 4 cards Omega Locked at once, if you do the abilities right. It's pretty crazy. It is a crazy ability. But the thing is that I feel Chaos Breaker has suffered for it. And while there's good Chaos Breaker cards, and there are good Chaos Breaker players, I really think that if you consider the whole of Limit Break, meta, of the good cards, I think that are still playable. I'm trying to qualify this right, because otherwise people will be like, ugh, what about Dauntless Drive? He has suffered a bit. I have lost to Castbreaker players just like everyone else has, but at the same time, it's more of a luck game, Just wait. Eventually they run out of resources. Or you let them draw themselves to death. Like, there's so many things you can do, but at the same time, a resanding Vanguard is much more deadly. And I think much better designed. Also less ugly. Aura Geyser Dragon. Probably one of the best strides in the game. On the same tier as Gilderay and Lambros. Where he is Cannon Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, kill 2 units. Look at the top 2 if they're grade 1 or less. I'm doing this from memory. Grade 1 or less, give it plus 5k, and then put them into your hand. This is on attack, sadly, and you have to flip over an Aura Geyser. But there are ways to make his cost practically nothing. And because of that, this guy's just great. He also has a Damned, which is his next level, which kills things on grade 0 or grade 1. It also gets a crit if there's 3 of them in the G zone. Not a bad card overall. This is one of those cards that will keep value. It is so useful. You need at least 2 in every Shadow Paladin deck. Like, even with Leward, I would run at least 2. Just because you can't just run all 4 Lewards. I mean, come on. Then we have the classic Dragonic Overlord, the End. This guy is the king of the cross rides, and probably one of the strongest cards in the game even today. But not as strong as he used to be. Like, I don't know how many players who listen to this will remember when Dote and MLB and others, and I know a lot of you guys do, remember when they dominated the game. And there was always like an Ezel player, a Dote player, and then I don't know what, but an MLB player, and then like somebody who bullshitted a deck. Like those would be the decks that you would see up top. Our meta was different from Japan, but at the same time, it's like just the fact that he has a 13k defense in an era where you might have to choose between 16k columns and 15k columns, but with abilities. Like, it's just so good. Cannon Blast 2, discard a card, Dragonic Overlord, the End from your hand, and when an attack hits, pay the cost if you do sand this unit. Like, with the Legion that he got with Dragonic Overlord DX and the grade 1, 2, 3 support, along with the abilities that the Legend gives him, really, it does do a lot more work than he used to back in the day. Especially since now you don't have to minus yourself or do crazy things to get more notes in your hand, or even just be lucky. There's all kinds of things that you can do with this guy. And I've seen almost as many decks of Dragonic Overlord at the End as I've seen like different decks in lesser clans. Like it's crazy how prevalent and popular this guy was. It's always good to see a reprint of him, but it does screw over some people who use Dotes as investment tools. Because investing is, a little bit of a secondary market. Like, it doesn't hurt them too bad because, they always reprint Dote for some reason. I think he has his original printing thing has 2 or 3 reprints, including this one. So now we're moving on to the double rares, Those were all triple rares. Double rares. The first one is a 1 card we didn't see here that I actually like a lot. Continuous. You may have up to 16 Mike the Shipwrights in your deck. So in other words, all your grade 1s can be Mike the Shipwrights. Act, Vanguard, Rearguard. Choose one of your other Mike the Shipwrights and put it into your soul. Increase this unit's power by this unit's power by the end of turn. So he doubles his power every time you send a copy of himself into the soul. And there are ways, like with Pirate King Ghosh and others, to really maximize it. He's a really good card, and I look forward to seeing... Well, I don't really look forward to seeing him and playing him Granny Blue decks, because he's going to be annoying. Especially if you pulled him out with, a Night Mist. So he's like, yeah, I'm already 10k. Send one into Soul, 20k. Send another one into Soul, 40k. And then it's like, I feel pretty good. And then he, looks at you with gleaming eyes and a chisel. Ugh. Excite Battle Sister Gelato. I don't really care much for the OTT Battle Sister support, There's some cards I like, but it's just half-assed. It's really half-assed with the abilities that they're giving them. Soul Blast, one was used placed on Vanguard. If you have a Heart with Battle Sister, pay the cost. If you look at the same number of cards from the top of the deck as your Battle Sister units in the card name, search for one card among them, put it into your hand, put the rest in the bottom of the deck in any order. You might be like, well, Ben, this allows you to keep up the stack. Battle Sister doesn't use stack unless you're running Monica, who is a limit break card, and thus cancels out her abilities. But Ben, what about, like you can look at the top 5 cards, draw one, put them at the bottom of the deck. You only draw one, though. That's it. Like, you Soul Blast one. It basically pays for its own stride cost. That's it. Like, it's good, but it's not crazy. Like, we can't go crazy over this sort of thing. Then we have Bladewing Reiji. He's a pretty interesting card. He works with the Bladewing archetypes and Wings of Immortality Reiji, but honestly, he's a little bit tough to use. And the number of Dark Regulars in your soul is 15 or more that gets crit 2. And you can choose a rearguard and when it comes onto Vanguard and search for copies of it and put into the soul directly, so you can +3 your soul. So the thing about him is that he was like set 7 is one of those sets that went up and down crazy. When Lukier was a thing, when Emerald Witch Lala was a thing, when all these different cards were a thing, and then all of a sudden he's a thing again. He's just crazy. But sadly, because he's a 10k generic, and he only gets crit +2 and nothing else, he's not that powerful in and of himself. He's more because Blade Wings are vaguely good. Mellum, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, +4k. At the end of the turn, return this unit to the deck, search for a grade 0, tap, shuffle the deck. This is one of the most modern cards in this set, I think, along with, not Aura Geyser. Well, it's just one of the more, that came out in the English, Grand Gallop. She came out about the same time as Grand Gallop, I think. Within a couple sets of each other. And she's really good just because the Gear Chronicle combos are so effing ridiculous. It's ridiculous. She's still a valuable card, very valuable commodity. All Gear Chronicle decks need a couple of her for their engines to work. That's how important she is. Buy her now while she's still cheap. Blackwing Swordbreaker. This is one of the cards from Limit Break era, even though she's not really a Limit Break specific card. When this unit is placed on rearguard from deck, Soul Blast 1, draw a card. What makes her good is that a lot of Shadow Paladins call out grade 1s and then kill them. She gives you call out grade 1, so it's a +1 to field, turn it into a +1 to hand, kill it for more pluses. Let's say that you play, what is it? Luard. You kill something and you summon out 2 Swordbreakers. Soul Blast 2, draw 2. Then you play Aura Geyser. Kill these 2 for another +2, then +3 for the drive tracks. Because, hey, guess what? It also funds Ritual, which means that you didn't even have to pay for Stride. These cards are fantastic. Really good design. Bad End Dragger. Now, this is a Spike Brothers card that was a break ride. Probably one of the better break rides, but honestly, it does not make my top 10. Well, maybe it does. Not top 5. Basically, when you break ride plus 10k, the Vanguard gets win in this unit. When one of your rearguards attacks Vanguard, they get plus 10k, and at the end of the turn goes to the bottom of the deck. Now, Spike Brothers have always been about those many attacks, and there are Bad End Dragger support cards. But the thing about this guy is that he really works best in decks that summon out a lot of Spike Brother rearguards, and not really in Stride decks. His Stride's good, and there are ways to double break ride to get plus 20k. But honestly, just not as strong as it used to be, especially compared to the Rising Nova series. However, if you want to use this, you can make a really great deck out of it. And honestly, things like Grateful Catapult and a few other cards are still worthwhile playing. A relatively new card is Raven-Haired Ezel. Limit Break 5. When this unit is placed on... Okay, when this unit is placed on Vanguard by riding from a grade 3 or greater Ezel, until in a turn this unit gets plus 10k, and your opponent cannot call other cards other than grade 1s from hand to G. So basically, here's what happens. You break ride Ezel Scissors. Sorry, it's kind of like treats anything under it like a break ride. You break ride over it, all of a sudden all they can do is perfect. And I think they can G-guard too. Yeah, they can G-guard. Because it's only from hand to G. So that, in other words, like, fortunately it's just one turn at a time, but then again, it's limit break 5. And it only cares about the 1 second where you'll ride. And you're not going to heal out of it from that point. So really, it's a really good card. It is a really good card, and it's going to make Gold Paladins annoying as shit. There's no other way to describe them than they're going to be annoying. Especially when you have to now hoard grade 1s and G-guards just for this turn. Whereas before you kind of have to worry about Gurguit. Well, now there's something else. Because guess what? This persists after stride. Because it only cares about the tick when you ride it. Doombrace. This came from a Fires collection and is honestly one of the better cards that Genesis has for a stride. But the problem is that, like just a first stride is what I mean. But the problem is that you don't really see too much of him anymore, and he doesn't really show up in the trade binders. I think they just wanted something in Genesis that wasn't too crazy, but at the same time was useful to just about everyone. Also, I think his art has improved a bit. Like, some of these arts, they seem, I don't know, clearer. Like they improved them somehow. But it seems like I can tell certain details a bit better. I don't know. So basically, Soul Blast 3, choose 2 rear guards, and they get plus 5k. And if the number of cards in your soul is 2 or less, Soul Charge 3. So basically, if you have like 5 cards in Soul, you can Soul Blast 3, Soul Charge 3. And give out power. It's just really good in the generic way. Ezel Scissors. This is one of those cards that, really was a part of Limit Break meta. It came from the same set as Minerva. And what he is he's basically the ultimate anti-Link Joker card. Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 2, unlock all of your locked cards. And if the number of Gold Paladin rearguards you have is 5, until end of turn, this unit gets plus 10k and a crit. And at the end of that turn, Soul Charge 1, choose a card from your damage zone, turn it face up. And it gets plus 1k for every one of your Gold Paladin rearguards. So basically, if you have 5 rearguards, he becomes a 26k crit too. And then, of course, you would Break Ride. Plus 10k, so it's a 36k crit too. Then, of course, you had like a 10k booster back in the certain days when you had that sort of thing. What was it? 10k boosters. When you had certain 10k boosters, so it was like 46k crit too. Oh, I don't have a perfect shield. Well, that was a fun game, wasn't it? Anyway, because Limit Break. Ethics Buster. One of the better break rides. Certainly because it works perfectly with the Nova Grappler's ethos, as well as from the, I think it is definitely improved the art. Works great with Nova Grapplers from any archetype, as well as sort of any deck except for like Victor. When a Nova Grappler rides this unit, choose a Vanguard. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, stand all your rear guards in the front row. So what's good about it is that certain cards gain power when they're restood. When you break, and also other cards give out power when they restand. So it's like, basically, you're boosting things up and you're getting another 2 attacks out of it. And especially with cards like Ethics Buster Reversed, which wasn't reprinted, but is still a really good card to build a deck around. You could basically restand your front row like 3 times. Like, you'd attack with the front row 3 times, and each time they'd be getting a little more powerful. So unless your opponents got real lucky and got like 2 damage triggers, you were going to ruin them. It was going to be bad. Zambaku. Now, this is one of the trickiest cards in the game to use, and it does have a few support cards that came out in Genius Strategy. At the beginning of your opponent's ride phase, if your opponent has a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, the opponent may choose a card from his hand and discard it. If the opponent does not, your opponent cannot normal ride. So basically, it prevents break rides without minusing your opponent some. And if they can't pay, they can't do it. Honestly, though, he's not as good as he used to be, and is mostly useful in conjunction with Zangeki, who is the support cards, which sadly is underwhelming, is what I'm told. Gadget made in Maki. This is placed on Vanguard or Regard, Soul Charge 1. This is a newer card. It's okay. I don't think Gear Chronicle needs that much soul, though. It's not bad, though. It's just one of those things. It's like, I don't think they need much soul. Fantasy Petal Storm Shiryuki. Kettle Blast 1, discard a copy of itself. At the beginning of the guard step of the battle, this unit was attacked. Pay the cost if you do. Choose the attacking unit, minus 20k. So basically, she turns herself into a 20k shield for a counterblast. Honestly, there's not much else to say about her. She's just such a solid card. Limit Break 4, she's the update of Mandala Lord for those who are keeping track. Sanctuary Guard Arc. G-Break 2. During your turn, all of your grade 1 or less units get plus 5k. So, like, there's a card that summons a 6k grade 1 unit behind it. So that becomes, instead of a 14k column, a 19k column. Cards that are 16k become 21k, and so on. Just a really, really good card. Just for that skill. And then he also auto Vanguard, choose a card from your hand, discard it. During your turn, when your unit with Sanctuary Guard and the original card named Strides, pay the cost if you search your deck for a grade 1 or less card, call it to rear guard and shuffle your deck. And this unit gets plus 3k, and your Vanguard gets plus 3k. So basically, you can discard a card for a 1-for-1, like, it's no different from like putting a card onto the rear guard slot. But instead of doing that, it also gives out plus 6k, which is a full stage, to whatever it boosts, or I'm sorry, to this guy, 6k to the, 3k to here, 3k to here. Or you could give it as a booster for a 6k. For like a 12k and all boost to the Vanguard. As well as use it to get cards back. Because I know, like, Knight of Sword David or whatever, Richard, Knight of Truth Richard, I think, he Soul Blast 1, draw a card when it's summoned from deck. Like Swordbreaker, So not only that, they refund the cost. It's pretty good card. Now, this is one of my favorite cards ever printed, Cyclomantis. Now, set 15 was kind of honestly, it wasn't as good as it could be. But it did have a few cards that have withstood the sand of time. Cyclomantis is one of them, sort of. And the sort of comes from the fact that he's Mega Colony. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, Mega Colony is one of the least supported clans in the game. But this guy is one of the strongest break rides in the game. Like, I cannot exaggerate that he is top 5 strongest. He's free, and here's what he does. When the Mega Colony rides his unit, choose a Vanguard plus 10k. Tap all of your opponent's units. All of your opponent's units, including their Vanguard, cannot stand. So, first off, he gives off instant, if all your units are tapped. He ignores resist. He can prevent the Vanguard from untapping. Of course, they can re-ride, but that's a -1. Now, consider you break ride, and they have to choose their own skills, so they have to re-ride, which could screw them over because some players run. Like, I know I run some cards I do not want to ride. So, like, instead of riding Shiryuki, they have to ride, Zanbaku or whatever. Which is actually would counter break rides. But it's, it's just free. Tap the Vanguard, tap all the units. If they don't have a grade 3, they're screwed. Stride does not fix being tapped. It might fix being deleted, which is kind of bullshit. Don't get me wrong. Kind of bullshit. But it does not fix being stood. It can make opponents basically say, well, that's too bad. I've had a lot of opponents just spend their grade 3s while I've been slowly getting my way and what I want, and then all of a sudden, break ride. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to no. What? You let me do this. I don't have a grade 3 in hand. Okay. And sometimes I've literally had players just go, miss your turn. I give you a return. It's a pity, though, that there isn't any support specifically for Cyclomative. He needs it. If he could get the Ancient Dragon treatment or the Gancelot treatment, where they got a Liberated treatment, where they got a grade 3 that can re-ride all the time, he would be so good. But sadly, he's good. He's not going to make much of a splash. Set 15 was overshadowed by Glendios, the Rebirth, Venus Lucier, and a few others. But really, he's one of the unsung heroes of that generation, especially with some of the stuff that he did in the future, and his combos with Darkface and a few other cards. Binoculus Tiger. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, choose another of your Radiation rear guards. And that unit gets plus 4k, and then at the beginning of the end phase, retire that unit. So, not much to say about him, other than Crayon Tiger is slightly better, and there's one that has Resistance better, but this guy, he works Vanguard rear guard, and he has kick-ass art. Really was one of the cards in great nature that you can count on being in every deck. Now let's talk about rares. A lot of alternative arts and stuff like that. Invite Roaring. Not really, but like this is an alternative art, I think. Yes. Yes, it is. This is an alternative art. And some new cards as well. Invite Roaring Inray. Harmony. Act rearguard. Counterblast 1, choose an open rearguard, and move this unit to that rearguard. If you move it, plus 1k. So there's no upper limit to doing it, but I'm going to point out that, first off, she seems to be a shark, which is just fantastic. But, I wouldn't use her too much, unless you really need to move her on the other side, for reasons that come from, Bermuda shenanigans. I'm just going to say Bermuda shenanigans. Bermuda players should know what I'm talking about. Dreaming Idol Karen, Counterblast, Soul Blast. When this unit is returned to your hand from rearguard, you may pay the cost if you do draw a card. I think Rio is a version of her, unless she's a soul charge. Problem is that these Counterblast, Soul Blast units are a little bit weak compared to what is out there, including Amelia, which is just Counterblast when it's returned. Draw a card. But that's G-Break. So, it's like you can do it early or not. Has anyone tried to make, Bermuda Grade 1 Rush? How do you look into that? Grade 3, Makoto, Ring of Pargio. Auto, G-Break 1, when this unit is placed on rearguard, choose one Grade 1 or less card from your hand. Call it to rearguard, same column as this unit. When this unit is returned to hand from rearguard, pick Counterblast 1, choose a unit in your back row, and return to hand. The only reason she's good is that she makes columns. Her second ability is not good. Except in the sort of generic, you can return more things to hand? Don't mind if I do. Really, she's one of those cards that I would consider running around, and I honestly think I'm running her in Loris, but not really as 4. And certainly not ever get her on the Vanguard. Sea Strolling Banshee. When this unit is returned from the drop zone, Soul Blast 1, and draw a card. So, she's basically Grand Blue's version of Swordbreaker. Not much else to say about her, other than it's an alt-hard and it's cute as shit. Then we have Tidal Assault, the Bane of all, next to Lambros, of all Aquaforce fighters, opponents to date. And what he is once returned, which is good. This simplifies things, Bushy Road. At the end of the battle, this unit attack to Vanguard. If you have an Aquaforce Vanguard, stay in this unit, and this unit gets minus 5k. So basically, swing 9k, swing 4k. But if you give it a trigger, that's 14k, 9k. Give it a booster, it's 9k, then 11k, or something else bullshitty. Swordmaster Mimic, Hollow, Auto G-Break 1. When this unit is placed on rearguard from your drop zone, this unit gets plus 3k until end of turn. And if this unit is hollow, choose one of your other units and it gets plus 3k. So, it has hollow too as an ability. So when it's called, this becomes a 10k. And if it's when it's called, plus 3k. When it's hollowed, give another thing plus 3k. So that Let's say that you're playing just a night, like a skeletal cannoneer. All of a sudden, that's a 22k column by itself. One of the stronger cards in the set that aren't like a stride or anything like that. You know, it's worth playing in just about every deck. I think it's a bit stronger in Night Rose. Mini Recital Nakuru, Harmony, Auto Act, Vanguard Rigor, Counterblast 1 that's unit in Harmony, Counterblast 1 to get plus 2k. So basically, you can Counterblast 1 for no reason. Be careful. But at the same time, there's no upper limit to this, so you can just like Counterblast 5, give her plus 10k. If that was rocks your boat, I'm sure she'll enjoy it. Ancient Dragon Geoconda. I've been looking forward to this card for a while. Moves use place on Rigard Circle, Soul Blast 2, choose 2 cards from the damage zone, turn it face up. Oh boy, was this card needed. It doesn't require having an Ancient Dragon Vanguard, so don't worry about that bit, but oh boy. Just the fact that you can Soul Blast 2 to unflip 2 damage solves a lot of problems in a lot of decks, especially Ancient Dragons. Dragon Knight Rulin. Auto G-Break 1. When this unit intercepts, choose one of your Vanguards until in a battle it gets. At the end of the battle, this unit was attacked. If it did not hit, choose one of your opponent's tapped Regards and retire it. Basically, it makes Hand Trap Kagero, Field Trap, Hand Trap, Trap Kagero, Trap Kagero, which is pretty deadly. Honestly, I do like this card, and I might consider running it in most of my Kagero decks. The Tonic Drill Dragon, another interesting card that we never saw, but it's been around for a very long time in Japan. Limit Break 4, Counterblast 2 when it's used place on Vanguard Circle, pay the cost, retire all rearguards of all fighters, including your own, unless they said differently. Because there's some interesting things you can do with this. Interesting things. Also, continuous Vanguard during your turn. If the opponent has no rearguards, this unit gets plus 10k. So basically what happens is you copy it up with the Tonic's Break Ride, and he can give out all kinds of crits and plus 10Ks and like guard restrictions. But honestly, may not be the best one with this one. However, it's still a pretty good card, especially if you are like me and you love wiping fields for no reason. Dragon Knight Falel, he has Blaze, he's a grade 1. Auto Rearguard G-Break 1 with this unit boosts a Vanguard with the Blaze ability. The boosted unit gets plus 5k. And if the Vanguard is blazing, the boosted unit gets plus 5k. So in other words, he's a 15k boost to a Vanguard, which can get beefy, but I don't really think he's going to be a problem. The problem is that there's a lot of really good grade 1 support for Blaze, and some of it is pretty powerful. Like, they unflip damage, and some let you draw cards, or like get plus 5k, like that sort of thing. But this guy only boosts a Vanguard. Yeah, I think that's how I'm reading it. It might be able to only give out 1 plus 5k if your Vanguard is also blazing, but I don't know. Beginning Juggler Draco Kid. When this unit is placed on Rigard, put the top card of your deck into your soul. And if that card is a grade 3, until end of turn this unit gets, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, it gets plus 10k. Weird. It's a weird card. But I'm certain there's ways to do it, but I'm not going to think about it too hard. I'm not going to run them. Sea Maiden Kulasina. When this unit is placed on Rearguard, all fighters choose a card from the drop zone, and they return that card to the deck. If they do, shuffle the deck. If all fighters return a card to your deck, you countercharge 1. So, basically, she gives your opponent a choice. Soul Charge, refresh your deck a bit by putting back like a crit or a heal. And believe you me, that can be really great to have, especially in a pinch. Also, but it can prevent you from countercharging. So it's like, I like her though, and I might run her. Acrobat Bear. G-Break 1, when this unit is placed on Rearguard, look at 3 cards from the top of the deck, search for 1 card, put it in the Soul Wrestling Bomb of the deck in any order. Paleman is starting to develop a small stacking mechanic with things like Chainsaw Mega Trick and Acrobat Bear. And honestly, they're pretty cool. However, you never really get to the stack. You just sort of prevent triggers from going into the soul. That's the idea anyway. He's okay. But the thing is, there's other things you might want to run. You're just going to have to look at your deck and decide whether it's worth playing. Like whether you need a little bit more soul charge, sort of deal. Zippy Worker. When this unit is placed on Vanguard, you may have this unit get grade -1. When this unit is placed on Vanguard, you may have this unit get grade +1 until end of turn. So basically, it can be a 1, a 2, or a 0. And that's useful for time leaping. I don't really know what else to say about this card other than it's probably one of the most useful cards for time leaping in the decks. Not much, like, it's one of those cards that's super hard to really talk about here. But it's, it has a place, and it's probably very good. I just have a hard time talking about it because it's like situations. Like, as a grade 1, you can summon a grade 2. As a grade 2, you can summon a grade 3. As a grade 0, you can summon a grade 1. And you can summon itself. And you can mess around with people. It's weird. It's weird. Sage of Transition Lyran. Soul Blast 2 is used placed on Vanguard Circle from anywhere. Pay the cost if you do draw a card. It's whatever. It's a clone that Royals have been needing for a while. Knight of Oblique Sundown Radion. Shadow Paladin. Unite. So, this is actually a Gold Paladin. And it looks like they have made an error and called it a Gold Paladin. I'm sorry, a Shadow Paladin. Good job, Bushy Road. Cannon +1 +3K. It's also a shitty card. It's terrible. Like, don't play this card. Better cards out there. Hidden Edge Crow, especially like Bull Rugal. But the thing about this card is that there's no upper limit, so you can just keep going. Hidden Edge Crow, that's a Shadow Paladin. Auto Rearguard G-Break 1. When this unit boosts, if the number of rearguards in your field is less than your opponent's, the boosted unit gets +4K. The good thing about Hidden Edge Crow is that he works on rearguards, which can really hit high numbers. But other than that, it's kind of a difficult card to use. And there are cards that gain abilities and benefits by just existing or being killed. That's a little bit more important. We're on the home stretch, everyone. Dandelion Musketeer Merca. When this unit boosts a Neonectar, if you have a Neonectar Vanguard, and the deck has been shuffled due to an effect of one of your cards during this turn. So in other words, someone else makes you shuffle now. But it has to be your cards. The booster unit gets +3K until end of battle. She's a 9K booster pretty much all the time in Neonectar. There's never been a turn where they've, like, not just generically attacked me, where they haven't shuffled the deck for some god-awful reason. Like, you're guaranteed to get it. Black Spotted Flash Gun Pepple Ray. When this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, choose one of your other units in the same column as the unit, +2K. This is a Mega Colony unit, by the way. She has really cute art. But at the same time, it's like, you got a machine gun there. Anyway, +2K, and if the unit has a Dark Device ability, choose one of your units, +2K. So, let's talk about, choose one of your units that gets +2K. Let's talk about why this card's bad. Oh gosh. Like, okay, let's compare it to Giraffa real quick. Giraffa gets +1K when you have a grade 2 Giraffa in the soul, as specifically Elite Mutant, and then it has Counterblast 2, choose 2 main colony rearguards to retire them. When this unit hits a Vanguard, pay the cost if you choose 2 of your grade 1, opponent's grade 1 or less rearguards, and eat them. Alright, so Giraffa's a bad card in this era. However, he has a lot of Giraffa support that makes him good. Papore doesn't do shit. Part of the problem is that she's only good in a power-based Dark Device deck. But that means that you're focusing on not Mega Colony either retire effects or stun and draw effects or the infinite loop combo that you can pull with machining, Legion, or any of the other things that you're doing. Like, you are literally wasting a space or four for a unit that gives out plus 4k and is a 6k booster. Now, consider this. You're attacking with the 11k attacker. You could give it plus 2k, and then another plus 2k and boost it. That's 21k. But that's only if it's the Dark Device one. What if you're running Tail Joe? Well, it doesn't work then. But also consider that, what if you put it behind the Vanguard? So you give the Vanguard plus 2k. So you're an 8k booster to a 26k column, which is 34k, which isn't anything. But then what? You give it to plus 2k to an 18k column? Like, unless you hit 19k columns, which means that you're running the kind of bad 12k attacker compared to the Dark Device one, which is, certainly has its uses. But again, it's like you're building it not around what's the best cards in Mega Colony, but rather building it around her, who gives out plus 2ks and occasionally the other plus 2k, if it's the right card. She's bad. Bad card. And it's like, I'm sure someone's going to be like, well, not whatever it really is, but, let's say somebody goes up to me and it's like, well, Betty, you could use it in this and you could get 21k. I'm like, I just used that example in the video. Well, you could do this with it. So, it doesn't do that much, though. It can't combo more. It doesn't gain you advantage. Once it's on the rearguard slot, you're done. That's it. It's just a 6k booster for the rest of the game, and guess what 6k boosters do? Barely anything. It's one stage added to it. 6k. That's one more 5k that they have to card with. Good job. I hate these cards. I hate what they do with Mega Colony. It's frustrating. It is the most frustrating part of this game for me. One last card, everyone. Shading Starvader Sulfur. Cannonblast 1, put this unit into the soul. When your opponent lock card is unlocked, your opponent's end phase, you may pay the cost to lock that unit. No, it's not good. It's not a good card. It's like Palladium. People don't play Palladiums anymore. People may play 1 Palladium or 2 Palladium, but they're not going to play Sulfur because that's a -1 for maybe a break even if you're playing Chaos Breaker. But let's say that you compare it to Palladium. Palladium can be summoned out with Colony Maker for a +1 to field, so that's like a +0.5. Then it turns into a +1 by counterblasting one going into the soul, so that when you soul blast, instead of killing something, you just get an extra card on it, and it essentially adds a turn of Omega Lock to your opponent. But you can't summon him out. There's no way to alleviate the fact that he is, at best, a break-even. At worst, a -1. You might be like, but Ben, you could draw another card later. Still doesn't change the fact that on that turn, you had to spend this card to get another card, which may be as good or better than this, or might be worse. Like, it could be just you draw a grade 3. Like, that's the risk you take. Honestly, I'm not impressed by them. The best cards are certainly the triple rares. But if I were to give some suggestions, of what people should do, Arc Saver, Raven-Haired Ezel, of just the new cards that come out, Mike the Shipwright, Geoconda, Rulin, excuse me, Zippy Worker, and Kulasina are probably, and I guess Acrobat Bear as well, are probably like the best cards that are kind of like new. But the rest of the stuff that we're not seeing, Detonics has some muscle to it, but really it's just a bunch of interesting stuff. And sadly, the Sanctuary Guard stuff is pretty pretty limited to Sanctuary Guard stuff. So, you know, there's not much mixing you can really do with it. And Mike the Shipwright just sounds like such a fun card to use, and I really do want to use him. Also, Arcsaver does sound like a great deck. He's like what Alfred should be, like, in this era. And I know we're getting a new Alfred out, and he's not bad. It's just, he doesn't heal. This guy heals the damage for Counterblast 3, Soul Blast 3, plus 3s your field, plus at least, it can like plus 2 your hand if you play your cards right. You know, it's pretty good. Alright then, I've talked about just about every card in the set, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. It's a good way to sort of retrospectively look at the Vanguard, where it's evolved, where it's going to. It's sort of like, you look at Jirafa, and you see how crazy, painful using abilities were back in the day. Then you look at stuff like Aura Geyser Dragon, or Night Mist, or, you know, Mellum, and it's like, wow, things have evolved. Thank goodness. Alright, I'm going to let you guys go. This has been Wheeler Mercenary King. Please like, comment, and subscribe to IYG. Every time you watch one of your videos, an angel gets its wings. Been Wheeler Mercenary King. Have a great evening.